All right, perfect. So again, welcome to episode 55 of the Danso Pitch Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Danso, joined by a very special guest. I want to welcome those tuning in from Spotify, Apple, as well as YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share today's episode. Special episode today. We're going to discuss that in a little bit. But special guest, sir, a good friend of mine, somebody that I call this guy the next Jeff Bezos, hopefully in the next future, the next Elon. So without further ado, sir, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Absolutely. It's great to be on the podcast. I'm really excited to kind of get going. It's my first time really doing something like this, so I'm really looking forward to it. But in short, my name is Adeboyega Ashampaula. You can call me Ade. Some people know me as A-Boy. I have many different nicknames, but my full name is Adeboyega Ashampaula. I'm currently a first-year MBA student at MIT Sloan School of Management. So I'm up in Cambridge, originally from New York. I was working previously before coming to school. I was working at Bloomberg in New York City. Currently, actually after school, I'll be headed over to Bain & Company to work in San Francisco to do some consulting, hopefully some private equity consulting for the most part. Yeah, what we'll be talking about today is pretty interesting because I'm relatively new to the whole, metaverse concept, and I like to call it the virtual universe. And we'll talk a little bit about why later. But altogether, I've also started working on an app called Aspire to Inspire, A2I, Addy, which is also available in the App Store. Shameless plug, available in the App Store. And what we're really focusing on is mental health and social media. But that was really my first introduction to tech. I really have a finance background. That was really my first introduction to tech, and I interned there during the summer, and I'm now currently been pulled on as the head of operations. So working to kind of organize our approach to the market. But working with that company for the past, I guess you can call it 6 months or so. I've learned a lot about the tech landscape and done a lot of work, kind of understanding social media. And now I'm kind of really excited to move that forward and discuss a little bit about, this metaverse, what that really means. And I also want to kind of calm some people down about what it means, but also want to introduce some people to what it really means, because there are really two sides. So I'm really excited to kind of get this conversation going. And let me know if you'd like to know anything else before we get started.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that you were able to share that information. I think having the audience get an understand as to who exactly is going to be kind of articulating or presenting this information about this metaverse would definitely is key, because like you mentioned, just getting an understanding, like you mentioned, coming from the entrepreneurial landscape, coming from the banking world, finance world, so to speak, is very key, because at the end of the day, I think that's something that's going to allow us to get a kind of in-depth conversation as to why such companies such as Facebook or now Meta, Microsoft. So we can go on, and those are just the titans. There's so many others that are in this world that I think that it's gonna be. It's the future. It's here. So I think that's something that's really important. I think a question that a lot of people may want to know is, what exactly is virtual reality? Like, what is the landscape of virtual reality? Why does it seem like so many companies are so interested in getting into virtual reality? And what is the impact of that from a data standpoint? Because a lot of times, a lot of these companies also have such information on us. I just mentioned a company like Facebook, which controls so much data on the social media spectrum. So what does the outlook look like for virtual reality? Are they collecting information for them to use as a benefit to know exactly our preferences? Or is this something bigger that maybe I'm not aware about? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's the beautiful thing about this is that there are so many different ways to look at it, right? Like if you kind of think about, and let's just start off from the beginning, right? I'll address the first part of the question and I'll talk about kind of, the data implications, right? Okay. So if you think about it from the beginning, right? What is virtual reality? Like virtual reality is not anything that's really new to anyone. Like this is something that we kind of have been familiar with. And the most interesting thing to me about this whole metaverse concept, and now that people are really focusing on virtual reality, is like it already existed, right? The only thing that Facebook really did was give it a name and give it a structure, and now they're looking to launch it as a product, right? Like the only thing that is really huge about this is that they gave it a name. This is something that already existed, and they probably had the capability to do this without rebranding, right? And if you think about virtual reality, and I'll talk specifically about Facebook later and kind of a few things that I've been seeing, but if you think specifically about virtual reality, all it really is the ability to interact with this type of technology in a 3D environment. And I'll say this from the jump, I am not a metaverse expert. I am not a virtual reality expert. I again, somewhat new to tech, but I do enjoy working on projects like this and working on things and innovative things like this. And this is something I've thought about in the past, and it's something that's relatively, I'm relatively excited about, that is actually coming to the forefront. And if you think about the type of world we could live in with virtual reality, some people are a little afraid of it because we're already trapped, in our phones, etc. But if you really think about it at a high level, we technically already live in a virtual world. Right?
Yes.
Everybody's always looking down at their phone. You communicate through the internet. When you go to work, you're probably sitting in front of a computer screen, or you're probably sitting in front of a laptop if you work from home. We live in a virtual world already. The only difference that's really going to happen is that it will be three-dimensional, which is like, shocking to some people because like, oh, wow, like it's going to feel real. And yes, it may feel real, but when you scroll through Instagram and when you're on Netflix, like, doesn't it also kind of feel real? Like it's pulling on your emotion. So, a lot of people are afraid of it because they think we'll be trapped in this 3D, virtual world. But if you look at the world we're currently in, we're pretty much already there. We're just taking that next step into that virtual, like actual experience. And again, there are definitely some drawbacks, and there are definitely some even hesitations that I have, but at the same time, I think this is where the world is going. So it is probably better to learn to innovate with it rather than just fight against it.
Great. Yeah, I think
was that helpful in regards to just explaining like how I
yes.
view virtual reality? Excellent.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and as you mentioned, I think that's something that kind of just gives a better scope for maybe everybody that may be listening, even including myself to some aspect. Because like you said, we spend most of our times already in virtual reality without even realizing it, because again, we're on social media, we use the internet for pretty much everything. Now, I know that's something that you also wanted to kind of highlight, and I think I'll save that for the later part of the podcast, is also now how we do payments online, and how obviously with the emergence of crypto, digital currency, how various countries have adopted this and are still adopting it, trying to get a better understanding of how to transact strictly through the internet or through a digital form of payment. So I think that's something also that kind of ties into the virtual reality world, but just kind of keeping things in scope, I think more so for the audience, is like I mentioned, something that you kind of highlighted, I do want to kind of reiterate, is like you said, the three-dimensional aspect. Us physically feeling like we're inside a world that has been created from the scope of maybe the mind, having something like that. Like we used to play games like, games online where they'll tell you like, you have to create a character, you create this person, but you actually can be this person. Now, I think that's a pretty cool aspect, but do you think that, a question I would ask, do you think people can get kind of lost in virtual reality as well? Where we kind
of let me push back a little bit. Do you not think people are already lost in the virtual world? Like, think about how social media affects your mental health. Yeah. Like we're already there, man. So in my opinion, the best thing to do, and this is actually why I've been working on this app to address mental health concerns with social media, because instead of just trying to fight against social media, why don't we work with social media to promote good things? Because social media, for example, does do some good things. You're able to connect people, you're able to connect family members and friends, you're able to start businesses, people can make livings off of social media. So it's not all bad, right? Like I get annoyed sometimes when people say, they hate social media. And even I was there at one point, but we're already there, right? So the fears that you have with virtual reality have already been exacerbated for the most part with what we're already doing. And I think it definitely it can get worse. Let's not pretend like it can't get worse, but at the same time, like we're already there. And conceptually, I just want to give you this idea, right? For anybody that's actually watching this podcast, like actually watching the video, like we're already doing this in a virtual world. Like the only difference is that I don't have on my virtual 3D headset and I don't feel like I'm sitting in front of you right now. Like that's the change that this virtual environment can bring. Zoom, for example, and I'll talk about this when we dig into this more, but Zoom, for example, could just create its own app in the metaverse or on Microsoft's platform whenever they release that. And you would be able to actually have those 3D in-person meetings. So I just see so much opportunity for so many different types of companies that can leverage this. And there's much more than just that virtual 3D feeling. You talked, a little bit about the payments, but I actually want to go back and make sure I don't miss the question that you asked in regards to data. So I'll touch on that quickly, and maybe we can touch on it a little bit more later. But it's a similar concept. Like, think about all the data that they already have on you. Right. I think one of the biggest advantages, though, will for the companies, and maybe you can look at it as a disadvantage for consumers, is that with this data, with this new data that they can collect in the virtual world, it might be more behavioral, right? Because now they can see how you act within the game, and they can kind of already see that, but maybe they can see how you would act in a 3D simulation of, a trip that you go on, or a 3D simulation of you being in a classroom learning something. Because they can actually they may actually be able to monitor behavior and understand human being behavior better, which is excellent for the companies. But at the same time, people may be a little bit worried about Mark Zuckerberg just having all that power. But it's interesting because if you kind of look at the power that Facebook already had, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram shut down a few weeks ago, and everybody in the world is panicking. So it's like you fear all of this, and you're scared of Mark Zuckerberg, but like it's too. I don't want to say it's too late, but you can already see the type of impact that all of this is having. So, but I think, and one thing that I did hear, and I'm not, again, I do not want to give anything as fact yet because everything is relatively new in my opinion. But I believe Mark Zuckerberg mentioned that you could sign up to Meta and be in this metaverse without using your traditional Facebook login. Do you have the opportunity to create an entirely new profile? Because he is actually concerned about addressing these data issues. So I was actually pretty impressed by that. But at the same time, the data it will still be there. And that brings me to another point. And interrupt me if you have any questions. But if you think about it, I kind of want to transition to what other companies can do this as well, because we talk a lot about Facebook, but Facebook is not necessarily unique in leveraging this 3D environment concept, right? If you think about games like, what Microsoft had done with Xbox and creating a virtual world, right? Let's get rid of the 3D part, right? Just creating a virtual world. Right, that you're being able to play video games. Think about Grand Theft Auto. We already have these virtual worlds where we can interact with other people. When you think about a game like Fortnite and what Fortnite has been able to do and how Fortnite has been able to expand, because users do like that experience. Now imagine, Microsoft just being able to say, hey, you throw on your headset, you can have, like Microsoft has already been doing this. They don't necessarily just have a name for it. It's within their video game environment. But as you may have seen, Microsoft also has the capability to create 3D environments within Microsoft Teams now. And you have the ability to create avatars. So Microsoft, once Facebook launched that, it took Microsoft 2 days. So all of these companies already have the infrastructure to be able to do this. To me, in my opinion, Facebook is just the first one to really announce it and commit. But all of these other companies, especially Microsoft, is fully prepared to go out, in my opinion. And I also believe that a company like Google has an excellent opportunity to dive into this as well. Because if you think about Facebook, right? Facebook's a really strong point is its user base, right? They can get many people the stickiness of their brand, their user base is huge, and it's going to be they're able to reach so many people really quickly. Microsoft is similar in that way with what they've done with Office and how they're embedded in our day-to-day lives. But Google is interesting as well because, I just, with the company I've been working on, we started a group chat and we were just deciding on whether to use text message, WhatsApp, and Namdi, the CEO and founder of the company, actually chose to use Google Chat. And I had never used Google Chat before. I never used Chat. And I didn't know that Chat is already available in the Gmail app. I didn't have to download a new app or anything like that. It's already there. And it was something that was new to me. So because it was so easy for me to just transition to Google Chat, I'll be using that a bunch now. Imagine they just introduce a virtual button, like, oh, take a look at our virtual environment. You don't even have to have that 3D virtual headset. You can just play a 3D game, or you can connect with people virtually through Google Meets, create an avatar. And then like, you see how it's so easy for these companies to get you comfortable with the concept. And then from there, they can kind of pull it out further because they just have such a huge base already. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, yeah. And I mean, obviously I can't speak for
I'm curious your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think something, and we had this discussion, just off mic, but it was something that we kind of had been saying, especially more so just kind of highlighting specific companies like that. Because first of all, you're looking at some of the most profitable companies, if not the most profitable companies in the world, that are now kind of just bringing this to the forefront. Like you said, they have the base, they have the infrastructure, they have the data, they have the numbers to back it up. So I think it's not a coincidence that Facebook is partnering with Microsoft to use your Microsoft Teams, or you have Google or Alphabet, so to speak. Alphabet controls what? YouTube. So you have all these platforms, all these companies that are handling all these aspects. And for me, like you said, you mentioned something that was interesting. You said that we already spend, or we have been for years now, spending time in virtual reality without us maybe even realizing it. Because again, we do most, if not, I do it like 90% of my work through the internet as itself, whether it's promoting this podcast business online right now. This is more of a virtual reality world, especially now post-pandemic. We're still in a pandemic in my mind, but post-pandemic, now everybody, like 60% of the workforce is working from home. We literally do our jobs like this. This is virtual reality.
So let's get a little freaky here, right? I want to stop you right there because I want to talk about this. If you think about the implications on remote work for this virtual environment, it is ridiculous, right? And I'll be a little hesitant because I don't want to offend any corporations, but in all honesty, I do not necessarily believe that people have to work in the office 5 days a week. And everybody has seen it during COVID. People started realizing they could be just as productive or even more productive at home. Imagine this, and we talked a little bit about this. Imagine this. Imagine you chilling on a beach, somewhere in the Caribbean, and just relaxing and taking a sip of water and just looking at the beautiful beach, beautiful water. And then, it's about, 9:30 in the morning, you're just relaxing, and you can throw on your virtual headset and be in your 9:30 a.m. Team meeting, and you are surrounded by your team. Feels like you're in the office. You have a 45 to 1 hour meeting. You get work done that you can probably get 3 hours, 4 hours of work done if you really focus within an hour. Seriously. You get that work done, you take off your headset and you're still on the beach. You see what I'm saying? Like during COVID, I went to Miami like 3 times. I was traveling the country, going to different places to work in different environments. Many of my coworkers did the same thing. And now that we have such capabilities to utilize a virtual world for remote work like this, that we can actually even bring some of that office feel into it. Like you can even imagine one day, like you could just throw on your headset, sit at home, and you're at your desk at work, right? You can turn around and you see your coworkers because also on their virtual, like you see a virtual body, but it can feel real, right? So
it's like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. And I already have this ridiculous theory that a lot of these movies just condition us for what's about to come.
Yeah.
And man, look, come on, man. Like it's beautiful. And there are definitely some drawbacks to it. Obviously, I think there are definitely some concerns you should have.
Yeah.
But there are so many positives too that I want to make sure that people don't ignore. But let me pause there and say this. I guess, what is the best way to frame this? You know what? I'll let you continue driving the point. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, and I'll come back to that. But it was what I'm saying making sense?
It makes sense. Yes, it makes sense. Definitely. Yeah. And
I just remembered a little
okay.
bit about what I want to say. I think this conversation is so important to have because over the last month or so, I felt like I was in no man's land because I was dealing with two particular groups of people, right? I was dealing with, and for the most part, I was dealing with people that just didn't care about the name change, didn't really understand it. And it's no fault of theirs. I feel like it was covered decently in the media, but I feel like people should have more conversations about this because this is something that can affect our lives in the future. But a lot of people either, didn't understand it too much, thought Facebook was just being funny, didn't really even didn't hear about it. And that concerned me a little bit because, I think there's such a huge shift in the future of society, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but based on how it's looking, I don't think so yet. Yeah. But then the other set of people I've dealt with is people that have known about this for years. And so it's like I'm dealing with two extremes. People who have known about this for years and are not even that surprised and are kind of really expecting it. They're not even excited anymore. They're just ready to go. They're just ready to kind of deal with it. Or don't even believe it was going to work because they've been thinking about this for so long already. But then on the other side, people who just don't care because they don't care. But then I've been doing meeting up with a few students here at MIT and particularly one, I won't say his name, but he's a PhD student, and he gets it. He has definitely given me a great way of looking at even framing my own thoughts better. So I think it's important to have these conversations primarily because this is something that everybody can understand. I just feel like it's either that the media hasn't done a great job of covering it for everybody, or maybe I'm just overzealous. But I really do think that I want to be able to kind of just explain this in the simplest terms at a high level of what it is. And what I'll be doing as well is I'll actually be starting my own podcast, and I'll be working with Charles on this to kind of just talk about different concepts within the metaverse. So this entire segment will really just kind of be staying high level and talking about what is possible and a few different categories that we can discuss. But then I think we can dive much deeper into this. But I'll stop there and I'll let you continue running the show.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you pretty much articulated for the most part what kind of giving the audience a perspective. I know audience, you may be listening to this or watching this and saying that, kind of trying to understand a better perspective as to what exactly the two of us are discussing. But the general idea, I think that both of us have kind of articulated. And I think you guys definitely get an idea as to where we're kind of headed as a society. Because ideally, that's what we kind of want to focus on is where we're headed, if not already in, without us really realizing. So kind of transitioning into that, there was an announcement recently that I think the media had covered where a lot of people were a little bit like, okay, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, announced that he is an investor in crypto. Now, I did get some confirmation to some or conversation surrounding that, where some people were like, wait, so is Apple trying to do something with crypto? Well, yes and no. I think the thing that Tim Cook was trying to do was kind of segue. He's not stupid. None of these guys are. They say things on purpose. They do things on purpose. So yes, I think him saying that may not necessarily say, okay, it's just fully Apple's crypto, but it can deal with something dealing in that virtual reality scope. And I want to kind of highlight that as well as to what the capabilities of cryptocurrency as a whole can detail in the metaverse world, the impact that it can have. If you can please touch a little, give a little light to that.
I would love to do that. And I'm definitely going to do that. But first, you just brought up an amazing point that I have to address now.
Mhm.
So first of all, I want to shout out Jamie Dimon real quick, the CEO of JP Morgan, because
Yes.
I remember, and I watched it live on TV when he went on Bloomberg TV and said that he believes crypto is worthless and they shouldn't invest in this. And this is maybe like 2018. And then like a year later, maybe not even a year later, they JP Morgan opened up a crypto desk and also had crypto ETF available, right?
Mhm.
And not ETF, but it had the ability to gain exposure to cryptos via JP Morgan.
Mhm.
After Jamie Dimon said that, and that was really interesting to me. But then again, I think I read maybe like a month ago that he had came out and said it again. And I think I just find that so funny because it's too late. Like
Yeah.
it's too late for him to dictate any of this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that are in either not kind of in the older generation that have seen the world work a certain way actually believe that it will fail. But I don't think so, and I think crypto is here to stay. And that's just my humble opinion based off of what I've seen in the past few years.
Mhm.
Now, talking about crypto, and even mentioning a little bit of what you said, right? These guys are not stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you think Tim Cook didn't know that was going to happen? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is Apple investing in crypto? Like, I'm sure Tim Cook has been investing in crypto for longer than we really think he has.
Yeah.
You see Elon Musk do it all the time. Talk about crypto goes up, he sells. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's. I'm not saying like they're manipulating the market, but they're not stupid. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So, you think about what Apple is doing as well. Like, I fundamentally believe that Apple is most definitely going to invest in crypto in the
Mhm.
future, and they will definitely be a part of this virtual environment.
Mhm.
That could either be building an app in the metaverse or just building their own. I was about to go off on a tangent again, and I'll say this point because I think it's important. The
Mhm.
most important thing to me, and one of the most important things to me about the metaverse or the virtual universes that all these companies come up with is the content,
Mhm.
right? The one thing Facebook doesn't have that a lot of these companies have is content,
Yeah.
right? So you think about like what I just mentioned with like, think about Disney, right? Disney has all this content already. They can just build
Mhm.
their own. Apple, all the streaming stuff that they have, all the music they have, the virtual 3D concerts. You know what I'm saying? Like they already have, they can just build. It's like I think a good point about something interesting to watch with Facebook. Like, is Facebook going to win this? Facebook is first, but this first mover advantage might not last too long,
Long. Yep.
because everybody else has such great content. Like Disney could create Disney World virtually
Mhm.
and nobody could do anything about it. Or
Mhm.
they could create an app on the metaverse, right? We don't know necessarily how that's going to look, but I just think that's really funny to
Mhm.
address as well. But I did lose where we were at. I just had to go on that tangent really quick. So can you
Well.
bring us back?
Well. No. You. Yeah.
Crypto in the virtual world. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit. So I want to shout out Corral Santos real quick because when I first started talking about the metaverse, Corral Santos, she also went to U Albany, and graduated with us. She hopped on right away and was helping me out doing some research and really having a conversation and thinking about this with me. And I think less than 24 hours after we had our first conversation, she sent me this tweet talking about how the metaverse has its own crypto coins already, like cryptocurrencies already. So if the metaverse already has its cryptocurrencies, what do you think is going to happen next? like think about it, it's like we live in a virtual world, virtual currency, and what blows my mind that people are just not like peeping yet is like, inflation is happening right now.
Yeah.
The value of the dollar is going down at the same time that the value of cryptocurrency is going up, and
Mhm.
nobody is like, that's huge.
Mhm.
Like people are talking about it, but not necessarily. And as that keeps on happening, that can keep on occurring, and especially within the virtual environment, it's a chance that people may live 50% of their lives in a virtual world. Technically, we already do, right?
Mhm.
So in that case, about these metaverse coins can work. Like, what is blockchain? What is blockchain really meant for, right? You can build things off of blockchain.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you think
Mhm.
about building things, 3D environment, virtual universe, technology. You can, like, blockchain has become much more useful if you think about the capabilities within the technology and that virtual environment.
Mhm.
But just to bring this up really quick, if you think about there are a few different metaverse coins, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but
Take it away from the light.
that's all good. I'll just read them out. But you have like AXS, Mana, ENJ, SAND, Rack. I don't really know the names of all these coins. I'm still doing a lot of research on my own, but it's beautiful to see like, top metaverse coins by market capitalization. Like that's a headline already, and people just not paying attention. Like, I think that is huge. Like, if the metaverse actually has its own coins that you can only use in the metaverse or only useful there, that's a huge thing, especially for Facebook, right? Because as I mentioned, these are metaverse cryptos. That what Microsoft is doing might not be called the metaverse, and I really want people to stop referencing the this virtual environment thing as just the metaverse, because that's just the name Facebook gave it, right?
Yeah. Just to give a little backdrop too for the audience, Metaverse actually was, I think Zuckerberg took that from, I think, a science fiction book that came out like decades ago, where one of the authors actually referred, virtual reality as a metaverse or multiple virtual reality. So that's kind of where Meta kind of originated from. But as he just mentioned, that not necessarily, Meta doesn't necessarily triculate to virtual reality. That's just a name that just is referred to, just because that was something that an author many years ago popularized the word for virtual reality or science fiction as we used to know it as back in the day. So yeah.
And when the other day, like when I was like a couple of days after Facebook changed its name, and I saw that article that said Microsoft unveils its own version of the metaverse, I was like, why did they call it the meta? Like, why is metaverse in this? Because I don't think Microsoft is going to call it anything.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So, but Facebook, I tell you this, Mark Zuckerberg and the Facebook team, they are a genius, because they found a way to move so fast, so first, that people are going, like, the average person, I actually think, is not going to notice that for a while. And this Throw 3D thing, it might just become the meta, like people might just refer to as a metaverse, right? Like, for example, when I use petroleum jelly, no matter what type of petroleum jelly I use, I call it Vaseline. You see what I'm saying? Like that brand stickiness is beautiful. So like that actually that will work in Facebook's advantage for a while.
Right.
But I do think Microsoft got some killers over there, man. Now, Microsoft is ready to go.
Exactly.
So, so we'll see.
It's funny that you said that too. I think brand recognition is popularized now, especially because him naming that, I think, is a testament to his team. I know it's him, and I think Sandberg is a COO, so I think that's his core people that he has. But there's so many other things outside of that. You have Disney. Disney has invested millions into their theme parks, especially now post-COVID. Why can't we have a virtual reality theme park? What does that look like? When we actually are on the ride, you see Mickey Mouse actually coming at you. Now, that may be some freaky shit for a lot of people out there, but this is something that you can do. You can see, like,
that don't sound fun. Like, that sounds mad fun.
That sounds crazy. Yeah, like this.
Right?
This is
like everybody's saying, like, oh, I ain't putting the headset on. What? I'm putting that on the first day.
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
I'm going to Nigeria. I'm going to Switzerland. I'm hopping off the Andes Mountains. I'm doing all that in the first
exactly.
I'm not going to die. What?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm saying, it's like and wait till they throw in virtual simulation, but actual physical stimulation. But you'll be able to jump out of an airplane in your living room. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think companies like this already exist, man. And I want to do another shout out to the country. I think it was the country of Iceland.
Iceland, yeah.
Hold on. Did you see that article this morning?
Yeah, I was reading that. Yeah.
All right. So for anybody who didn't read this article, I want to make sure you go read this. So this morning, I was just trying to be funny to see, like, is there any last thing I need to prepare for this podcast? First thing, I just typed in metaverse. One of the first articles was Iceland skiers Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse with Zuckerberg's metaverse with new tourism ad. So it's beautiful to me that, Mark Zuckerberg basically positioned this metaverse as an ability to travel. Like, like somebody came up, like, we can travel virtually. Like, beautiful. That's pretty cool. And the countries and the people who make money off of tourism got so scared that they made a full commercial. Wow. They made an entire parody commercial making fun of Mark Zuckerberg to make people think like, oh no, the in-person feeling is much better. What? Like, think about how much money I got to spend for all them flights. And I'm like, yo, y'all spent all this money to make a commercial. That's how I know he's right.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not having that. Like,
Yeah.
this is like, it's beautiful what they're trying to do. And I do think obviously there is some positive to in-person travel, and that's not going to stop me from traveling in person.
Mhm.
But I can travel much more. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I can see different places, much more. And although it's not the same as being there physically, but why not? Like,
Yeah.
like I get it, but I think a lot of the benefit to traveling is just seeing different things, seeing a different environment, experiencing beautiful mountains and beautiful views. And hey, man, you might even be able to learn different language. Like, imagine being in a virtual virtual environment where you're living in another country and you have to learn another language. Like, think about that. Like, so many companies can hop on this. And I feel like I'm even talking too much now because I'm just giving away so many good ideas. But I'm not that smart. Somebody thought of this before me. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I didn't come up with it first, but if I did it, man, somebody build it. Let's get it. Like, I'll work with you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up? Like, let's all, like, we could all win right now. Like, so let's just do it. Like,
yeah.
I guarantee you, I am going to attempt to build at least a few apps. Like, and everybody knows. Like, again, I don't necessarily have a tech background, but man, I go to MIT right now, and I got time to learn. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I have the resources at my fingertips. This is an amazing program, and I think I'm going to try my best to just make sure I network as much as possible and learn as much as possible. And kind of how I mentioned earlier, there's so many people who have known about this for like months and months and months, maybe even years.
Mhm.
I just got added to a Metaverse group chat at the school here, like a Metaverse interest group for MIT students, and it's like I'm like, it's like 60, 100 people in here. I'm like, oh man, like they've been on this for a minute.
Yeah.
So it's like this is not nothing new, man. Like, people have been on this, people have been taking this seriously, people have been doing the research, people have been doing the work. So I have such great respect for those people, because they have made my job so much easier, just understanding this as someone that is entirely new to this, that only thought of this as a dream. So I respect so much of people that are at the forefront of this, because I'm technically kind of really new and just getting started, but I'm really excited about what the capabilities are.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I want to stay on that actually. What, and this is kind of moving away from the metaverse, but more so as to the individuals that are building this type of world. What do you think the importance for an audience member listening that may be thinking about maybe understanding more about this? What do you think the educational aspect behind understanding software design, computer science, or what is the benefits of that in the future? A lot of people don't realize software engineers are the highest paid individuals in today's world, in today's marketplace. That is not by coincidence. Based on what we just discussed, this is what a lot of these companies, not even just these Facebooks of the world, we're talking about middle tier and even startups, are hiring individuals, throwing millions and thousands to millions to even billions of dollars to invest into. This is why Amazon is building job training, job skill sets, trying to put people through school to understand these skill sets. This is why certifications and are also becoming a benefit to having an MBA and et cetera. So I think you mentioned MIT, and I'm listening to you, understanding the resources that you're able to garner. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to go to MIT, because obviously some people, they like doing it the another way. But I think having that educational background, and there's so much resources out there. You can have job training going on YouTube now. You can have different types of programs that teach you this, where you just do a class for a couple months and then you're able to get trained in various platforms like that. So where do you see that going in the job market? Where do you think that's going to go?
So this is one thing I will say, that it is that I actually just learned over the last 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. I had this colleague at Bloomberg that was probably a few years older than me, and he actually went from my department. He actually went into engineering, right? He took a few engineering classes, software development classes, went that route, and I was able to progress, turn into a product manager, move over to another company, do something similar, and really use that skill set. And I caught up with him the other week just to catch up, because I wanted to kind of just make sure that I'm doing the best that I can to learn as much as I can while I'm here. So I started to reach out to some old colleagues just to, get an idea of what they're doing, and kind of what they're interested in and what they've learned. And one thing that he told me that was really important was that I asked him what was the most important skill or the most important thing that you've learned in the last few years to be able to do what you're doing. And he said, I think he said 3 months ago or 6 months ago, if I asked him that like it's a year ago, maybe he probably would have said, software design or not software design, but understanding like engineering, learning how to code, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And he said now that is actually not as necessary to work in the business, right? To be able to have a vision, to be able to build something, you don't necessarily have to know how to actually build it. You can have a teams for that. So it's not too late for anyone who's looking to get into the tech space, looking to get into technology. It's actually not too late. And I do think, but I will say this though, anybody that's in college right now, if you're in high school or you're in college right now, you should be taking computer science classes. Like your computer science classes are probably more important than your math classes. And I'll say that to anybody, right? But I'm saying for the people who don't have the opportunity right now, if you can't go back to school, not as necessary, right? There are a bunch of courses that you can take online to learn how to code. But I think what's more important is just understanding the business. Do some research on products, right? Do some research, for example, like go research the guy who, if you're interested in like doing any product management or learning just what works with the product, just look at products that you like to use and see how they came about, right? Look up the product manager. For example, like look at the guy who's a product manager for Facebook that created the like button. Like somebody like, what I'm saying? Like think about how legendary that is. He created the like button. Mm-hmm. Like you necessarily need any technical knowledge to create something like that. So I always like to have people try to stray away from thinking that you have to have that computer science background and you have to know how to code. It's very helpful. I'm telling you, this is very helpful, and I think everybody should try, but it's not as necessary. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it just goes around doing research and reading for yourself, not necessarily I can't stand when people just read a bunch of news articles and think they are experts. I never think I'm an expert at anything, and I try to read as much as possible all the time, research articles, etc. I think it's important to really understand what's happening in the landscape and then from there you can see where you're looking to fit in and what you're looking to do. And I don't necessarily know who you were asking the question for, whether that's for like career switchers that are people who are looking to go to school or people who are out of school for many years and just looking to gain more exposure to this virtual environment. I think anybody that exists on the planet Earth today that has access to the internet can leverage this virtual environment.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think it's people that, like you mentioned, you said high school, college. So it's people that are transitioning into that part of their life where they're trying to get a job or trying to get a career post education. So, and there's other people that, like you mentioned, are maybe in a job right now that they may not necessarily like. There's a lot of us like that, where we fall into that, and we necessarily don't always. You don't always have to be a CEO. I want to preference something to the audience. You don't always have to run the company, but just as you are important in running the company, you're also very important in building the company. So what does that exactly mean? That means that what are the skill sets that you're able to basically do to build the company of the future? A lot of people love to talk about Steve Jobs, but sometimes we forget about Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was the guy behind the coding, the building of the Apple product, even the Apple II computer. That was something that Wozniak fully did. Steve Jobs was the visionary, but Wozniak was the builder, the developer. And I think a lot of times the developer gets lost in the mix, but you don't have a product without the developer. Now, this is something that's very important. You need a developer. And I think we're mentioning to everyone here, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter where you come from. There are people that are less fortunate than you that are able to make a living by teaching themselves how to build products, how to even understand it. Even if you're not the builder, at least understanding it, because now every job you're in, it has a computer, something in place. It doesn't matter what job you do. Every
Yeah,
job.
I think I'm not sure how true this is anymore, but I read an article a few years back. Maybe I think I read this article in like 2018. I think like for incoming investment bankers, like that's part of the screening criteria now.
Yeah.
Like whether you have any coding experience. I'm like, yo, this guy, like obviously like it does have something to do with tech, but the role doesn't necessarily have anything to do with tech.
Yeah.
And they actually have to understand this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think, and well, I was watching this show the other day. I forget what it was, but somebody was discussing the concept of what it is, what it means to be an apex predator.
Wow. Okay.
And I actually think, if you think about industries, I think the technology industry is an apex predator. And an apex predator, if you think about it, is a predator that obviously hunts for prey. But an apex predator is a predator that hunts for prey, but doesn't have anybody that can hunt them. Yeah. And the tech space, it sounds like its own industry, but is it really its own industry? Because it affects every other industry. So you want to think about tech like that. Like, stop being so either stop thinking you can't do it, stop being afraid of it. And for those who are in tech, understand like this is a huge, and most people in tech understand this already. Like anybody who's in tech that's watching this is like thinks like I'm crazy for even mentioning this, but there's a lot of people just have no idea. Like, and I think in the conversations that I've had, like I've been both like kind of surprised, but also motivated. Like, oh wow, like this is something that's so important that people should be able to get into. So kind of going back to your question, not to go, I'll be going off on tangents all the time.
You're fine. Yeah.
I always like to bring it back.
Yes.
I think it's important for anybody that's in high school or college right now to really understand that they should have some computer science experience. You already have a lot of computer science experience just using this stuff, right? Learn how it works too. And then from there, I think anybody outside of that, there are so many resources on the internet. You have all these courses that you can take. And I think you know, me being here in a place where I have access to so many resources, like it is easy for me to say, but at the same time, like, you know, for the first 2 weeks, I barely talked to anybody at the school, and I just looked in the internet for myself, right? And I was just trying to understand. So I think anybody can do this, literally anybody.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else you want to talk about. I mean, I think
it's a lot, man. That's the thing. Like, when we stay, like people, anybody listening to this, that thinks we really went deep, man. We did not even touch.
Nah, we didn't touch the surface. Yeah, we may do that for an exclusive, and that's a TBD. But for what we wanted to at least give you guys was the general public, was just kind of giving you guys what exactly is coming out, what is already here that you may not be aware of. Virtual reality is something, technology as a whole has taken over our livelihood. And some people will say, hey, you know, maybe that may be to a detriment, but I don't really think it's a detriment, because I think it's become a benefit for us. We live in a world now where technology has adapted both the current generation and generation coming up. You may have a 2-year-old son, daughter, godson, goddaughter, niece, nephew that is able to literally go on YouTube, search online, go online, do various things that is involved in virtual reality. So this is something that I think it's a benefit. It has the possibility to grow more than what it is right now. And I think as a person that's listening to this or watching this, it's time that you get involved in it too, whether it's from an investment standpoint, from a development standpoint, from a career standpoint. If it's something that you want to transition to a job, I think that's something that can also be a benefit for you. Get into a world that it's heavily induced in our culture. So that's very important. Your last thoughts, sir, that you want to share with the audience. Oh, you froze up? Okay. So I think that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think for the most part, we've kind of highlighted for you what exactly we wanted to discuss today. So if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, my name is Charles Danso. This is The Pitch. We are thinking about transitioning our name more details to come with that, but we will definitely be promoting this episode to kind of gauge your questions and answers. Anything that you guys may have, feel free to reach out to us. We definitely would be excited to want to answer this question because, like we mentioned, virtual reality is something that is going to be really important for us in the future. So I think everyone that's listening right now should want to learn more about what it's like from a social media standpoint. If you're using it on your social media through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter, what does it look like having it in a virtual reality scope? Like he mentioned before, when you throw on the glasses, you're literally in the meeting with your managers, your co-workers, and you're at the beach somewhere or you're overseas somewhere. Most companies, if not all, should already have adapted to working from home fully. The pandemic has shown us, as mentioned before, that productivity has actually increased. And there's statistics to back this up. Productivity has increased over time, that obviously us being able to work from home during the whole pandemic. So why exactly would we want to go back to that? My last thoughts. Welcome back, sir. Can you hear us?
Sorry, I dropped off a little bit there. We can edit that if we have to.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're good. You're good. Yeah, I was just talking to them, just kind of reiterating what we discussed. I just wanted to get your last thoughts before we kind of wrap up today's episode. Your last thoughts you want to share for the audience.
I got you. Now I'm really excited about this because I like to drop a few dimes just to have people just to get people's brains going, right?
Okay.
So I have a few notes here. So if you think about this, right? We talked about the virtual universe and how it existed already. We talked about the competition in regards to Microsoft being able to do this at the snap of the fingers. They have the infrastructure available. Some companies that can benefit off this, and we can kind of talk about this later. And you can mention them as well, but Roblox, I believe the company is RBLX. And also another company called Cloudflare as well. I think that they have a really good chance to take advantage of what's going to happen with this virtual universe race. When you think about security, and when you think about even like the concept of being able to host such a large web platform, like I guess you may call them something different, but to host all that data with all these virtual environments, somebody will need to do that. And a lot of these companies can do it on their own. And I'll mention Amazon right now real quick because I forgot about this, but imagine like Amazon, right? Amazon can employ their own version of this virtual 3D world, and if you don't think they're gonna do it, you're wild. Or like maybe they build an app in the metaverse, right? Yeah. But imagine being able to throw on your headset and shop for clothes and try on clothes, and then buy that like you in the store, no lines, you can try on everything you want, and then 2 hours later, all that stuff is at your crib because Amazon is so good at shipping stuff fast. So that's a little like just get your juices flowing a little bit. And then Meta cryptos, talked about that. NFT, the NFT market. And again, each one of these will probably be a separate episode when I get this podcast going, set up within the next about I believe 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
But if you think about NFTs, like I just created my own NFT the other day.
Nice.
Like being able to host virtual shows, virtual art shows. I saw on earlier this morning, I saw like a virtual Travis Scott concert in the Fortnite world. Actually, see if I could bring this up really quick. I think it'd be great to show. One of my friends just threw it on their story, and I was like, "This is so realistic." Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see that. But
oh,
it's a virtual concert.
What the fuck?
Like, imagine your 3D headset, like you playing, like I would watch this without 3D, you know what I'm saying? Like that's cool, like that's Fortnite.
I'm sorry if you're listening to this on audio, we'll explain it a little bit in depth, but yeah.
So basically what it is, it's like the game, it's like almost like you have the game Fortnite, you have different Fortnite characters, but then all of a sudden this Travis Scott avatar is like 10 stories, 20 stories tall, just jumps in the middle of the game and starts performing. But imagine like you had your virtual headset on and you just saw that coming from the sky, but it's actually Travis Scott because he has his virtual headset on too, wherever he's at, and he's actually performing live for you. Like if you think about what just happened at the concert, like the danger of having that many people in the same place. if you think about what the NBA could do in regards to throwing this virtual headset, you sitting courtside. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm throwing out all these ideas, and anybody could build any of this stuff, but I know I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the first person to think about this. So I really don't care. And I just want that, like, most people to be able to understand what is actually possible with this virtual world. A few more, and I just want to make sure I don't forget any of these. We talked about personal data. Another company to look at is NVIDIA. We'll talk about specifically why, but I think NVIDIA has a great opportunity to leverage what's happening within the tech environment right now, just go into the virtual world. But one thing I want to think about real quick, and can you confirm this for me? Are you in front of a computer right now? I just want to make sure I'm not spreading false information. Who owns Twitch? What company owns Twitch?
I want to say, is it not Alphabet?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I need to hire somebody to do this stuff. Let's see who owns Amazon owns Twitch. Okay.
Okay, so I'm not lying. Yeah. So Amazon owns Twitch. That's not like, think about this. Like, Amazon owns and AWS. What they could do with that type of combination, Amazon, like everything they own, like Facebook bought Oculus like 8 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you think that these companies are not being so strategic about this, like, do you know what you could do with Twitch in a 3D virtual environment? Like, think about that. Like, think about what YouTube can do. YouTube is owned by Google. People already sit on YouTube and watch regular tours of other countries. There's videos up there with virtual reality you can do right now, but it hasn't been deployed to the average person. And I actually think, within the next 20 years or so, the goal for some of these companies is for everyone to have a virtual headset in their household, at least one, and like it's a TV. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, you want to think about how fast this can be. And the last point I'll leave you with is actually I'll save this one for one of my joints, because the heavy one. This is a long conversation we can have. But the last thing I'll mention is just I think, again, that Facebook has done a great job of introducing this concept so that it is digestible to people and they don't freak out too fast, because Facebook just, like, the video was a little, people were a little freaked out by the Black Mirror episode and how Facebook announcement looks so similar to that. But at the same time, I think Facebook did do a good job of kind of slow playing this and having people get more comfortable with it. And I don't fault them at all for that, because I do think that it's going to happen anyway. Yeah. And that the best job that we can do is just be cognizant of how social media has affected us and the internet has affected us in the past, and take those lessons moving forward so we don't make the same mistakes. But I do believe that all of these companies have a great strategy ready to go. And I think that it would be a mistake to ignore this as if nothing is happening, because this is to me, this is probably the biggest thing. And I could be wrong, but to me, this is probably the biggest thing since Bitcoin was introduced. Right? I agree. As far as a concept that can change the world, because Bitcoin within the Bitcoin becomes even more valuable if you think about its capabilities within this type of environment. And again, I'll say it again, man. Inflation, the value is going down right now, and the value of Bitcoin going up. That's the last thing I'm gonna say.
Exactly. So yeah, and again, I do want to thank you again for coming on today's episode. I think the information that you've articulated is very valuable, and the audience, I'm sure, would agree, whether they're listening to this or watching this, because of the fact that this is the world that we're in now. The question I want to leave with the audience is, do you want to be a part of history or at the back end? That is the question that you should come away with this interview thinking about, or this discussion, I should say, more so thinking about, because of the fact that now we're in a world that has adapted what we articulated step by step in today's episode. So That's up to you, audience. I want to thank those listening from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Again, my name is Charles Danso. This episode will be available in the coming week. You guys enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up soon on next week's episode, as well as this gentleman's episode. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Hey, appreciate you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate anybody who listened to this entire interview. And I really hope that you've learned something today. That's really just the goal. And just even me, I learned something just talking to Charles. So I just think the best thing is just to keep having these conversations and, let's get after it, man. Let's have some fun with this.
Yes, sir. Thank you and peace.